Peter Eliades with you again. This is the Stock Market Cycles update for Tuesday, January 7 days into the new year of 2020. This chart that we're looking at now is just a simple 5-minute chart. You can see we had a dramatic decline beginning around the little high before the decline was 12:20 in the afternoon. That's Pacific time, so that would be 3:20 New York time or Eastern time. So this shows it as being around 6:30 now. This again is dated with Pacific time, so around 9:30 Eastern time. You can see the dramatic decline we had here with a high of 32.43 going all the way down to a low of 31.81. Folks, we're talking about this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, almost 60-point decline in the futures, and they've rallied back now about halfway of that decline. I don't watch the news too much because it doesn't concern me with the market, but obviously this was news related. It had to do with the Iranian attack on American troops in Iraq, was my understanding anyway. So we had a dramatic decline, and now we're rallying back. What does that mean for the price projections? Well, remember, last night we did a relatively late update, and today's is relatively late too. But we told you that we had projections. We gave you 3 upside projections: 32.51.05, 32.52 and 32.63 The first 2 projections were met overnight. This high around 1 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, when we got up to 32.54.50. So we easily met the first 2 minimum projections, and we missed the highest projection by about 9 points. But that was invalidated quite quickly too. So what do we do now? If you have this projection software, what are you looking at? Well, let's walk you through the process here, because you can also do projections on Globex charts. The Globex charts, as most of you know, are the overnight trading that begins after the regular daytime market hours. There's a lapse of about 15 minutes. Globex starts trading again, stops for about 45 minutes, and then around, I think it's 3 in the afternoon Pacific, 6 in the afternoon or 6 in the evening Eastern time, they trade throughout the night. So that's what they're doing very happily right here. So we had almost that 60-point decline, and now we've had a 10, 20, 30, 40-point recovery from that approximately 60-point decline. Things are getting pretty volatile here. So where you would turn to if you had this software overnight would be the Globex projections. And we'd start with the very shortest ones. There's nothing going on here. As you can see, it crossed up here. Got a quick projection. In fact, the projection's not even on the chart. The next one is this one. You got this very short-term downside, which was obviously hit, and a rally began from there. But then you got the big decline, news-oriented, if you please. And then the next one down here, this projection, again, it's not on here. We're having some kind of difficulties with the projections generating on the charts here, but that will be taken care of before we offer it to you. But you can see very quickly, it's about a half a space, 1.5. So about 1.5 spaces down. 1.5 spaces down would be, the projection would be in this area somewhere. We obviously went significantly below that. Let's go to the next longer offset. That's this one here. Now, this one is interesting. Look what happened here. You say, well, that's a huge projection window there. Why is it so large? Well, I can show you why it's so large. Just look at the prices and look where they cross the offset lines. There's a huge difference where they cross. The first one crosses right here. This is the second offset line here. That would be the equivalent of, see, the red one is the first offset, the black is the lagging offset. So you cross the black offset here, you actually cross the red one way up here. So if we click on this, it'll show you exactly what crossing points it's using. So the first crossing point is way up here, and the second one is well down here, which gives you this huge downside projection, which almost called the low. I mean, with this kind of volatility, to get the lower side of that projection window, which calls for 3185.50, and the low on this first bar here was 3188. The next bar was the low 3181, just 3 or 4 points lower, and then you started the big rally. So this was not a bad projection in terms of the lower side of the box. The next one is this one right here. And this one quite similar, a huge projection box, because see, you can see the crossing here. Here's the high, and you get a crossing right here through the red offset, and way down here, significantly further down, you get a crossing below the blue offset. That's why this window is so large, because if we click on the window, we can see where the crossings take place. The first one right here, the second one right down here. And that's why this projection window is so great. But again, 3186.80, and when it got down there, yes, you did get a little bit lower. But remember, this is a very emotional, news-oriented decline, and still the projections did an excellent job in finding where the downside risk was for the very short term. Let's look at the very next one here. I'm not sure what this one shows. Yeah, almost the same thing. Doesn't get down quite as low, 3193.75. This is the one, by the way, look at this from last night. This is the projection that we had from last night, 32.43 to 32.55.50. Look where the high was. The high occurred at 32.54.50, right near the upper edge of that projection box before things started coming down, breaking below both the offsets and generating this lower projection. So we'll look at one more here and see what it shows us. Okay, this is this is a potentially important one because notice, in fact, this is really interesting. Let's take a closer look at this one. This is the emotional sell-off with the news, the Iranian-Iraqi news, that gave us a projection box way down here. Let's take a look at this projection box. That's using this high way up here. You can see the high that my cursor's pointing to. Then we have all this action, and we have a big break below here that took place after the news came out. But look what happened right around this projection window. Let's zoom in on what took place here. Notice the midpoint of each one of these bars. They move over just a little bit to make sure you can see what's going on here. Okay, here's the midpoint, the midpoint, the midpoint, and look at this one bar at the low of the overnight low took place below both of the offset lines, theoretically at least giving a projection all the way down here. But that was immediately on the very next bar invalidated with a move back above the line. I'm showing you real-time things the way they will happen when you have this software and the kind of analysis you will have to go through. So this was a downside projection. When you get something like that on a big news story that shows an incredible decline like we saw here, 60 points in the S&P, it's best not to immediately say, whoa, we have a projection way down here, let's go short. No, you wait and see. Let things settle down a little bit after the news comes out. And so you immediately see that occur. And what happened here now is we have an upside projection from this low on the way up, which calls for a high of 32.21.50, and this high right here is 32.19.75. So this is the way the projection software will work for you on a very short-term basis. The more important ones are the longer-term projections that you can use for longer-term investing. But those of you that are traders, this software is fabulous because it gives you an idea what's happening over the very short term. So I'm going to cut that off here. And, I have a suspicion that I might be doing an intraday update tomorrow. I won't promise you that, but I have a suspicion I might be doing that when we see how things settle down during daytime trading in the first 2 or 3 hours tomorrow. Let's put a hold on that and keep a watch on it. If you are subscribing, and if you subscribe, hitting the banner bottom right, click on the bell for a subscription, for a notice in terms of new updates, you will be notified if we do an intraday update as soon as we do one. So I would recommend, if you're interested in any kind of potential intraday update, that you, if you have not subscribed, do that already and click on the bell to get a notice. That's it for now. Obviously, things are very volatile here, and there's something very important going on underneath the market. We're not going to talk about it yet, but we have our eyes on it, and we'll be discussing it with you over the next week or so. That's it for now. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow, or maybe with a special update tomorrow during the market day.